Hi everybody, I'm Ditkaz, and welcome to my first YouTube video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about all the anime that I watched in 2023 and give my personal ranking from bottom to top. Before I get started, I want to make it clear that I did enjoy all of these series, just some of them I obviously enjoyed a little more than others. There are 47 that we have to go through, so let's get started by going over each of the shows I watched last year, starting with the Winter 2023 season. In Winter 2023, I watched Tomo-chan is a Girl, which is a rom-com series about a girl who's very tomboyish and in love with her neighbor and best friend for basically her whole life, and everything she tries to do to kind of make him notice her that she is a girl and stop treating her like one of the guys. Next up is The Misfit at Demon King Academy, Season 2, which did get delayed partway through, about 6 episodes in, and then started airing again. And it's about a guy who was the Demon King and chose himself to reincarnate thousands of years in the future when it's a little more peaceful time, and basically still claims who he is. He grows up really fast and goes to this school, and it's about him basically reclaiming that peace and everything. I also watched Buddy Daddies, which was a more of a slice of life comedy type about two guys who are assassins who end up taking in a little girl and raising her and all of those misadventures. Bo Fury Season 2, which, again, second season of, I believe it's something about, I didn't want to get hurt, so I maxed out my defense, and it's about a girl playing an MMO, and she basically just puts all of her points into vitality to make it to where she doesn't take damage, and ends up becoming super broken, and throughout the first season she gets all kinds of crazy powers and all that. So I was looking forward to that after watching the first season last year, getting caught up on the first season last year. The Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World, another fantasy series about a kid who becomes the Ice Blade Sorcerer prior to the start of the show, and he's enrolled at a school and he's making friends. He actually has part of his power sealed, and slowly starts kind of like he's going through rehab trying to be able to use more of it, and it's like the Ice Blade Sorcerer is considered to be the strongest sorcerer in the world in that series. Ningen Fushin, which is about a group of adventurers who all were betrayed in some way, shape, or form, and they band together to adventure, basically just on the basis that outside of their adventures they leave each other alone. They don't really mean to become friendly with each other, or at least that's the point, so that they can't betray each other, and it's, however they spend their money is how they spend their money. Chilling in my 30s after being fired from the Demon King's army. This is another one of my favorite shows of the year, and as it sounds like, it's about a guy who gets fired from the Demon King's army, goes out, he's worried about how he's going to survive because he doesn't have magic power like all the other demons, and then it turns out he's actually a human, and he's incredibly powerful for a human with his like spiritual energy that humans are able to use. And finally, in Winter 2023, The Fruit of Evolution Season 2, a theme here with a lot of fantasy type or isekai series that are season 2s in the Winter 2023 season, which this is about a whole class of Japanese students who get transported to this other world, and the main character in the first season was like a chubby kid who eats this thing called the Fruit of Evolution. He eats so many of them and evolves and becomes kind of a superhuman, and he's like super overpowered. He ends up causing this like big gorilla monster to evolve, and it's a woman who's in love with him, and she takes the form of a beautiful girl, and he kind of ends up getting a little bit of a harem going in the first season, and the second season just kind of continues that and finishes up the storyline. Moving on to spring 2023, we have the Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc. Obviously pretty much everybody who watches anime knows what Demon Slayer is. If you don't watch Demon Slayer specifically, the Swordsmith Village arc is all about Tanjiro when he's going to get a new sword made, convincing his sword maker to make him a new sword, and also a little bit of recuperation and recovery after the events of the entertainment district in the previous part of Demon Slayer. Next up would be Mashley. The main character, Mash Burn Dead, cannot cast magic, and his grandfather who took him in kept him hidden in the woods forever because this society kills people who can't cast magic. So instead, Mash just works out, and he's incredibly physically strong. And when he gets found out, he gets forced to enroll in this school and try to become a divine visionary who kind of like set the precedents and the rules of the world that they live in. And so he pretends that he has magic, and he basically uses all of his feats of strength to imitate magic when he needs to. And anybody who tries to harm him or his friends or his family, he says, you know, I'm going to beat you with my fist. And it's a fantastic, funny show. It's just outrageous at times. I love it. Next would be My Love Story with Yamada at level 999. This is a slice of life romance series about a girl who gets into an MMO to play with her boyfriend, and then she just gets dumped by him for another girl, and she runs into this guy and acts like he's her boyfriend just so that she doesn't feel so she can kind of save face when she sees her boyfriend in public. And it turns out that this guy is a famous professional gamer who's also in the guild that she plays in on that MMO. So it's kind of about how their relationship builds, and how he, who never really had, the guy never really had an interest in women, and he slowly falls in love with her and realizes those feelings, and how she kind of befriends these other people in the guild, and how their relationship builds. Konosuba, An Explosion on This Wonderful World, the spin-off series of Konosuba, focusing on Megumin and her time as a young girl in school, and then finally leaving the village of the Crimson Demons to eventually head to the main city of Konosuba, which I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. I got a cheat skill in another world and became unrivaled in the real world too. I'm a big isekai fan, and after doing some research, this series is actually written by the same author of The Fruit of Evolution. So I'm assuming it kind of was written afterwards, because you can kind of see where some of the similarities with the storyline and maybe like some lessons were learned, and they felt like improved. Because I do feel that, you know, kind of a spoiler, isekai cheat skill I think is a little better than Fruit of Evolution. It's a little more serious in its tone and its art direction. And it's about a guy who he's a kind of a social outcast, obviously. He's like the chubby kid who just gets picked on and bullied by everybody, including his own family members. The only person who cares about him is his grandfather. And then later on finds a hidden room in his house that has a random doorway that takes him to another world. And in this other world, he gains the ability to level up in this place, and he gets like all kinds of crazy XP because he's not from that world, and it allows him to become like super high powered as his stats increase. His body undergoes a massive transformation and becomes like this super hot guy who's like way taller and muscular. Well, not like super like buff, but he's like shredded, and he's super strong and like super fast. And then his whole life changes. That's about his adventures in this fantasy world, while also improving his life in the real world, and all those like the ways that his life improves and changes. It's really interesting. I actually also read the light novel now after watching the anime. A Galaxy Next Door. This series is a slice of life romance series about a manga author who also runs an apartment complex. His parents ran it, and he inherited it when they died. He's got his two younger siblings, and he's got a bunch of tenants that live there, and there's an open room. A girl moves in, and she's like a beautiful foreigner, and it turns out she also wants to learn to draw manga, and she becomes his live-in assistant, basically. And at one point, he notices a weird thing on her, and to try to help her out, he goes to grab it and ends up pricking him, and it turns out it's like a weird spine, because she's from this island where her people are descended from people from the stars, and by doing that, they gain like an emotional connection where he's supposed to get married to her, and he basically starts feeling like attracted to her because of this connection, and it's all about them navigating that relationship. And it's a really cute, like low-key, kind of comfy story. Again, it's interesting, it's different. Now for a wacky one on this list, The Legendary Hero is Dead. This series is about a He's a radish farmer who lives in a village after losing his old home to a bunch of demons that invaded. And the legendary hero who beat all these demons goes through the village and ends up falling into a spike trap that he has in front of his house and dying. A necromancer takes his spirit while he's sleeping and puts it in the hero's body and says, well, since you killed him, you have to now take over his job because the demons are coming back and somebody has to deal with this. He's dead. I can't bring him back to life, but I can make you use his body. And he goes on like this wacky adventure of trying to eventually save the world. The Cafe Terrace and its Goddesses. This is another like harem slice of life rom-com type series about a boy who inherits a seaside cafe from his grandmother who raised him. And when he shows up to the house, he finds, I believe it's 5 girls, young women, all college-aged, and he basically steps on one of them changing and then sees like others naked, and it kind of leads to some confusion until he explains who he is. And he tries to kick them out at first, but they're like, hey, like, you can't just kick us out of this, like, we live here. And eventually he decides he's going to make this cafe turn around, and he decides to take a break from college and turn it all around and live with these girls. And it's about him making this business successful and also, again, navigating his relationships with these girls who, at least some of them, by the time this first season is over, some of them have clearly started to develop feelings for him to various degrees about how open they're going to be about it. Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. This was part 2, aired in 2023. 2022 was when the first part aired, which, again, Gundam, giant flying mechs. Witch from Mercury being the first series of Gundam to have a female protagonist. And even though they kind of backpedaled in the Japanese media on it, it does involve a lesbian relationship between the main character and another one of the main female leads. Super interesting. The Gundams are very looked down on. They're hated because they kill people in this series, like people that try to pilot them. The whole technology behind it kills people, and the main character is able to pilot a Gundam without dying. She's able to run it just fine, and it kind of gets explained more in the second season why that is. And it's all about how that whole thing gets, her navigating this school life that she got to. If you've seen the first season, that kind of ends very explosively, and this continues on from those spots with the stakes kind of being raised a lot more in the second season. It's a lot more serious, hard-hitting, and it does come to the end there. Still, great series. It's one of the only Gundam series that I've actually managed to watch all the way through, but I watched it as it was airing, so it kind of had a little bit of advantage there. And the final show from spring 2023 is My One Hit Kill Sister. This is another isekai series where a young boy, like teenager, dies, and he's reincarnated into the world, and he's like, okay, I got reincarnated, I know all about these things, I play games like this, I watch series like this, I've got to have like superpowers, like I've got to have like some kind of special ability, and he's just completely average. And then towards the end of the first episode, he's seemingly about to die because a monster that's way more powerful than him, and all of a sudden his sister appears, and she's overpowered. She has crazy, like, maxed out stats, is able to just one hit everything. Her magic's crazy powerful, all that. So it's seemingly that like his special ability is that his sister was able to come with him. She says that like she realized that something happened, and she followed him basically in his death, because she's obsessed with him. So it kind of has like that weird element because of like her being overly clingy to him at times, but it's a really interesting fantasy, like I said, fantasy isekai series, all about how he's trying to work to become stronger, to not have to rely on her all the time, and her basically always being there to bail him out and just basically destroy everything that's in his way with like one hit. Summer 2023 is when Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 started. Again, it's another one of those heavy hitters that everyone knows about pretty much. Like even if you don't watch it, you've heard of Jujutsu Kaisen probably if you watch anime. The second season was divided into two parts. The first part being a flashback sequence about the characters Gojo and Geto when they were in high school, and as they were doing like a super serious mission to protect the girl who was going to become kind of the new pillar of the Jujutsu Sorcerer community. And then the second season being the Shibuya incident arc, which takes place back in the present timeline of it with all the main characters. Next up in summer 2023 is Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Season 2. Again, another isekai. Season 2 takes place directly following the events of Season 1, which had like kind of a really sad ending for him, where one of his family members who had been traveling with most of that season left him, and miscommunication happens, and he ends up super depressed and ends up going on like his own further travels, ends up going to a school and basically trying to learn more about the events from the first season, while also trying to find the rest of his family members and like get clues to like solving the issues and like things that happen there. Horimiya Peace is another slice of life, kind of a romance series. It's also like Horimiya the Missing Pieces is the other thing that it's called. It's a bunch of little side story excerpts that take place in between the episodes from the original Horimiya anime, and like little filler bits of extra context to their relationship and all the different people around them, the other students in their class that they're friends with. Masamune-kun's Revenge R. This is another sequel to a kind of harem rom-com series. The show's all about this boy, Masamune, who was in love with this girl when he was a little kid. She was like his childhood friend. And when he goes to basically confess his love to her, she insults him and basically just calls him fat and says that she'll never fall in love with him. He disappears for years, goes and trains up his body, becomes like super thin and really attractive. And his whole goal is, I'm going to make her fall in love with me, and then I'm going to dump her right on the spot. The second season continues where the first season left off, where he hadn't managed to lock that in, and he kind of finds out that maybe there's more to the story about why he was rejected like that. Maybe there's some misunderstanding there as well. Reign of the Seven Spellblades. This is a fantasy series about students entering the most difficult to survive magic school in this world. And all the mages there kind of use a combination of magic wands and sword skills. I was really confused for a while with this show because it's called Reign of the Seven Spellblades, but there are only 6 main characters. But Spellblades refers to a technique in the world where the Spellblades are one-hit guaranteed instant kill techniques, and there are 6 known Spellblades in the world. So seemingly this is more about, at some point in this series, a 7th Spellblade is made by one of the main characters, is my assumption. But I can't confirm that. I haven't read the anime doesn't get that far, and I haven't read the manga or light novels or anything that it's based off of to confirm that. Am I Actually the Strongest? This is another isekai series. A man dies and reborn in this fantasy world. He's a baby who at birth, he's read to have like a really weak mana value. And he was born to the king and queen of this country. They don't want there to be confusion by their having this super weak child, so they cast him out basically, and they're like, well, you get to die. It turns out he actually is incredibly powerful. He read it, I believe, if I remember correctly, he read it a 2 on his magic's power, but that's only because his reading is actually like triple digits or quadruple digits, and their magic devices can only read double digits or something like that. So it couldn't read that high, so it errors out and only reads him as like a 2 out of like 99 or whatever. He gets picked up by this demon because he learns that he can use like this basic barrier magic, and he's able to use it to allow himself to communicate as an infant. This baby's kind of protecting him. He ends up getting taken in by his uncle and raised as his own. And it's all about how, as he grows up and like learns more about his power, he still assumes that he's actually weak, but he's able to do all kinds of crazy things. So everyone kind of like pushes him to kind of attend like school with the royalty and become kind of like a pillar of everything. He's like, I just want to sit at home and play video games. Like, I made my own video game console, and I just want to be chill. Rent a Girlfriend Season 3. You don't know, this series is about a college student who, after being dumped by his girlfriend, he decides to use a rental girlfriend service to kind of get over that despair and make himself feel better. And him and the girl that he's on a rental date with end up lying to their grandmothers, saying that they're actually dating, and a bunch of hijinks ensue over the course of the various seasons as they kind of navigate this fake relationship, while he very quickly falls in love with this girl for real and just is kind of unable to bring himself to say that because he doesn't want to ruin the relationship they have, and he doesn't think he has a chance because she's too good for him. The third season follows them as, at the end of the second season, he decided that he was going to do whatever it took to help make a movie starring the main heroine, Chizuru, and trying to get this movie made before her grandmother dies, so that she can see her on the screen, because that's been her dream her whole life, is to make sure that her grandma sees this. And it's all about all the steps they take about getting this movie made and getting it to where she can see it and everything that ensues. Liar Liar. Liar Liar is a kind of slice of life action comedy series about, in this version of Japan, there's an island that has a bunch of schools where students are ranked based on like a point system and like a star system, and the main character, through kind of a hack, he kind of doesn't do it on purpose. He accidentally tricks this girl who decides to pick a fight with him. They play games to like trade stars and stuff, and she's like the number one player on the whole island. He ends up beating her and taking her stars, and at that point he's considered a 7-star, even though he's actually only a 1-star. And it's all about all these other people trying to like take these stars from him, and he's actually even only there so that he can find his childhood friend that he hasn't spoken to in years, who he knows is on that island somewhere. It's kind of a different series. It's funny because all the background characters are like paper cutouts. They look like almost like the fans in like old sports games and stuff like that, where they're clearly 2D, like little paper cutouts just kind of standing there, and there's like no details to their faces other than like the main characters to the storyline that are like fully rendered. It's a different sort of thing. It's a really cool stylized show. It's a lot of like techie stuff. It's really cool. Reborn as a Vending Machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon. This is a series I was looking forward to a lot. I believe I'd seen like the light novel at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, this could be a really cool thing. And once I found out it was going to get an anime, I was waiting for it. It's about a guy who he's in love with vending machines. He knows all about them. He follows he goes around Japan checking out different kind of vending machines, and he's like on his scooter going behind this truck that has a vending machine on the back, and it goes to fall off, and he's like, I need to save this vending machine, and he gets squashed by it, dies, reincarnates in this fantasy world as a vending machine. But he's sentient. He knows what's going on around him. He just can't move or can't really communicate other than like speaking the pre-programmed Japanese voice lines that the vending machine would have. Eventually he runs into some people. Well, some people run into him. He learns that he can buy skills still if people buy things off of him, and he's able to like produce a barrier. He protects this girl, and she learns to kind of like understand what he's saying. Like when he says certain phrases, it means yes or no, or I don't want that. And he slowly learns like more and more about how to communicate with people, and like unlocks different forms of vending machines, and learns to like help solve problems in all these ways. And it's a really cool adventure isekai series that seems to have a really bright future, assuming it gets more seasons. I'd really like to see where it goes. Classroom for Heroes is a fantasy series about a guy who was like the great hero who defeated the Demon Lord. It's kind of implied that they sort of killed each other, but they felled each other, so to speak. The Demon Lord is seemingly dead, and he just kind of lost most of his power. The hero did. So he enrolls in this school where all these people are training to be heroes, and it's all about him he just wants to live a normal life, but like the king of the kingdom is like, you're going to get your power back because you're the legendary hero and we need you to help train all these other people up. And he's like, I'm just a normal guy. None of these people know I'm the legendary hero, and he's just trying to keep it a secret that he is, and nobody figures out that that's what he is, but they're all like, man, why is he so strong? And basically he starts helping all of his classmates, and he's like trying to just become friends with people because it's the first time he's had friends in his life. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. This is another isekai series. This office worker, he overworks himself and dies, wakes up in this fantasy world, and in this fantasy world everyone has skills that are based from F to, I believe, S. And they might actually go to like multiple S's if I remember. I don't remember the exact details there. But he has all of his regular stats are F, and all of his gathering stats are S. The other thing this world has is everyone has like a maximum level, so as you level up you can get points to increase your stats. He only is level 1 and he can never go any higher. He ends up being able to use these gathering skills to get better drops from monsters, so he's able to get way more drops than other people when he's able to get something killed. So he can make a whole lot of money because he's like, oh, I got all these really high quality carrots and I can sell them for a whole bunch of money. And it's about him living in that world and making friends and the people that kind of like take care of him, and how he adjusts to that world, and like basically takes the thought of, hey, I died from overwork. Like, you people need to not overwork. I'm not going to overwork. Like, I'm going to work hard here, but I'm not going to overwork because I know my limits, because it's literally what killed me. Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness in the Secret Hideout. This is a animation based off of a video game. I've never played the game. I think I have it on my Steam wish list. But it's about a girl and her friends who live on this island that's kind of, it's just off the coast of the mainland, but they're very isolated. People don't really leave there often. They don't have people. Sometimes pretty much the only people that come in are merchants. And she's always bored. Her and her friends always talk about going on adventures. Her one friend is all about like becoming like a really strong swordsman. He's like this huge buff dude, and his dad like was a warrior, but now he's just a drunk. And her other friend is just like an academic. He just always studies, even though he doesn't know how to read like ancient texts. So during the events of this series, they end up meeting an alchemist, and the main character, Ryza, decides, I want to do this. I want to pick this up. Teach me to be an alchemist. And it's all about her becoming an alchemist, her friend becoming more of an academic, learning to read these ancient texts, and her other friend learning to fight better, and the adventures that they go on as they grow as people and as adventurers, and like kind of become like more accepted members of their village on this island. The final show from summer 2023 that I watched was Ayaka. This was kind of a different series. It's about, in this version of Japan, there's an island called the Ayaka Islands that have kind of like spirits that roam there. Not everybody can see them other than people with spirit powers. The main character was raised on the mainland, and when he turned 15, he moves back to these islands where he was raised, where he was born and raised, and he's raised by not direct family members, because what happened is that his father had died, and that's whenever he gets sent to the mainland. It's all about him learning about the existence of these mystical like spirits and how to use these powers, because he actually has like a lot of raw spiritual power himself, and he's trained by people that were his father's students, and him basically like reconnecting with where he was born and like kind of trying to learn where he fits in the world. Finally, we have the fall 2023 season. This is, in my opinion, this is probably top to bottom the best series, although it's also the best season, although this is also the one that I watched the most shows in. So we start with the big one, one of the big ones for the season and the year, Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Again, it's another one that I feel like if you watch anime, you couldn't have missed this show at all. It's about an elf who's really, really old. She's a really strong mage, and she's part of the heroes party that defeated the Demon King in this world. And at the beginning of the show, it's about right after they basically returned from defeating the Demon King. And then like it clearly shows like time passes, and eventually the hero dies, and she realizes how sad she is that she didn't get to know them, that she didn't get to know him more. And from there, it's all about her adventures, as it says, beyond Journey's End, like after defeating the Demon King, like how she lives her life and how she interacts with people and tries to understand people more as someone who, to her, the 80 years that is the normal lifespan for someone, it's nothing. She's always like, well, it's just a decade. That's no time at all. And everyone's like, that's a long time for humans. We don't live as long as elves do. And it's all about her learning about these things and like adapting to the world around her. And you see this slow growth in her throughout the series. And it's a comfortable show, but it has like some really cool action sequences. It's very emotional. Most people I know that have seen it cried during the first episode. It's a great show, and it's still continuing currently in the 2024 winter season. Spy Family Season 2. Again, if you don't know what Spy Family is, it's about these two fictional worlds that are kind of meant to be like a fictional version of Europe. And these two countries that are bordered east and west of each other, they're kind of in a cold war of information. And the main character, Lloyd, he's a guy called Twilight. He's the best operative from the one country. He's a spy. He's a man who can change his face, basically. And he gets sent to the other country because one of their generals is seemingly trying to prepare for a war. And he's there to get information, and he's supposed to make a fake family and get this student enrolled in this school and somehow basically get close enough to this guy to find out what he knows and basically determine next steps. He ends up adopting a girl to have this family. It turns out that he doesn't know this, but she's actually a psychic. She can read people's minds, and she's uses that to end up kind of like appearing a little bit smarter at times, even though she's a little ditzy, but she's definitely very advanced for being only 4 years old. She always tells people, I'm six. But like you can tell from like the way she speaks that she's younger, and like the fact that she's like really small, but like she's actually very capable, even though again she's still a little kid at heart. He eventually meets a woman. The main character eventually meets a woman that he asks her, hey, will you marry me? Basically, like, I need somebody to be the mother of my child. But it turns out she's actually secretly an assassin, and she's like crazy powerful. And like there's some times where it's hinted at where he's like, man, like how does she kick like that? Like how is she so strong? And it's kind of this balancing act of like their relationship of these three characters and them kind of hiding all their secrets from each other. The second season continues all that stuff from where the first season left off. And it's a lot of fun. There's like really cool action sequences. There's a lot of really funny stuff. Oh, and they have like this adorable giant dog who can kind of see the future. So the only person that can really communicate with him super effectively is the little girl, because she can read his mind. The Rising of the Shield Hero Season 3. So the second season of Rising of the Shield Hero is kind of weak. It's a little weird. But third season, in my opinion, a lot better. It's a little bit more of a return to form. The main character, he's brought into this world and with three other guys, and they're all these cardinal hero. I believe it's the cardinal heroes is their names. And there's the shield hero, the spear hero, the bow hero, and the sword hero. The problem is the shield hero that the main character becomes, they're very looked down upon. So he gets tricked and berated, and everyone's like, well, we can't kill you because you're one of the heroes, but you're not getting any help from us. And he becomes very spiteful of it, and it's all about him basically like navigating this world where a bunch of people openly can't stand him. Although by the time season 3 rolls around, there's a lot more people that have a lot more respect for him because of things that he did in earlier seasons to kind of like clear his name and make himself look a lot better. But he's still like kind of distrustful of people, and he kind of comes a dick at times, but like it kind of makes sense because of what happens to him. Goblin Slayer Season 2. This series is very much kind of presented as being more of like a D&D campaign, sort of, with like different characters going on. And it's all about Actually, the main point of view character a lot of times is this priestess who in the first season, her very first party basically gets wiped out by goblins because they are overconfident. Everyone's like, goblins are really weak. They're they're one of the weakest creatures. Anybody can take them, but they're actually really crafty about things. And that's where the namesake character, who goes just by Goblin Slayer, his whole thing is he knows how to kill goblins really well. This season continues their adventures with the priestess, the elven archer, the dwarf shaman, and I forget what the lizardkin guy technically is, and I could be wrong about the dwarf being a shaman. It's something like that. But all their adventures going forward, and hunting down goblins and other creatures. Shangri-La Frontier. This series is a kind of modern, maybe a little bit futuristic-ish MMO-based show about a character. The main character, he plays trash virtual reality MMO games, or just virtual reality games in general. He plays the worst of the worst games because it's just what he's into, and he's always like, oh, this game is so bad. He's like, but it was so fun. And eventually, when his high school goes on summer vacation, the woman at the game shop was like, why don't you try playing a good game for once? And that's this game, Shangri-La Frontier. It's considered the god tier game. It's like the greatest game known to man. There's 30 million players, and he starts playing that and using his skills that he developed as a trash game player, where all these games are buggy messes. He's actually like a super, super high level video gamer. And it's all about his adventures in this world, discovering this is what it's like playing a good game. Like, holy crap. And it's all about like some friends he makes and like these crazy adventures, because he happens to run into like a high level boss like a couple days into the game basically, and it like leaves him like marked, and now his whole goal is to become strong enough to beat this boss that marked him and like recognized him. So it's a really cool, like, high action, a lot of comedy, and it's all about playing like a virtual reality, almost like a full dive virtual reality MMO. Really, really cool show. It's also started in this season, or continuing in this 2024 season. So looking to see where it goes with the rest of this coming season, and if it continues on from there, assuming it's popular enough. Next is the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. So the whole thing with this series is the main character confessed to I forget exactly. I think he actually did confess to like 99 or 100 girls throughout his whole life. And there's actually a joke like in the very beginning of the series where a guy's like, well, how did you confess to that many people? When was their first confession? It's like, I was 3 months old, and he like sees like another baby. He's like, love you. And the girl's just, ugh. So he's not really like super average. They're like, you're good looking, you're good at sports, you're good at school. Like, I don't understand why why you can't find a girlfriend. And it's just all these times, it like seems like he's got something going, and he confesses to a girl, and it's like, oh, I don't like you like that. So it turns out that in this world, when people are given a soulmate, they have that one soulmate, and they eventually meet them, and they fall in love and all that stuff. So the main character, finds out going to a shrine that this god of love messed up and accidentally gave him 100 soulmates. And he's going to meet them all while he's in high school. But he's told that the problem is if someone meets their soulmate and then fails to keep a relationship with them, it's basically like it uses up all of their lifetime of luck, and they'll end up dying. So the main character's like, okay, well, when I find these soulmates, I'm going to make all of them happy. I'm going to date all 100 of these girls when I meet them all. It's one of those things where, unlike other harems, it's not like who's the best girl. Like, they're all good in their own way. Just like, it's not like quintessential quintuplets where like, they're all pretty good except for Nino. She's awful in my opinion. I know there are some that like her. I don't get it. Whatever. But the whole point, like one of the taglines of this series, is the harem rom-com where none of the girls lose. Next is The Kingdoms of Ruin. This is a fantasy show where there are witches, and they're all women. They were created by the gods to help protect regular humanity. They're given all this magical power. They keep people safe. They help protect against like drought and floods and all that stuff. And they basically live in harmony with humans. The humans, though, as they do, eventually develop technology, and when they get to these certain points, they're like, well, we don't need witches anymore. Specifically, this one country that developed and pushed technology forward, like, we don't need witches anymore. They're just holding us back. They're a threat to us. And they go on a literal witch hunt and start killing all witches. So, in the first episode, there's the main character who's a human who's an apprentice to a witch. He's able to use magic specifically because he can use written style summoning magic. He's got like a little quill. And she's like basically training him to use magic. She's like, only use this to help people, to protect people. Eventually, they get caught. He watches her die, and he's kept prisoner for 10 years. The show really starts after that with him being released and him basically like saying, I'm going to kill everybody. Like, you took the person I loved. You killed her for no reason, even though witches only helped you. Humans are evil. You all need to die. And it's basically about his crusade to like try to get back at all these people who killed the person who was most important to him. It's a really dark series. There's a lot of blood. A lot of people die. But it's interesting. It kind of set me towards the end of the show, towards the end of the series. But I do kind of hope that there is more of it so I can see where it goes from there. Next up is Berserk of Gluttony. This is another fantasy series. In this one, everybody is born with different skills. There are regular humans. There are warriors who go out and protect. They just kind of fight monsters and things like that. They have some kind of combat skill, things like that. People can level up. Again, everybody has kind of like different amounts of levels, but it kind of is shown later that there's like the ability to break through and have like a new level cap. And then there's things called holy knights, where like they'll have specifically like a holy sword technique. They're even stronger than warriors, although some warriors are like retired holy knights. They're meant to keep the peace, but a lot of the ones they show in the series are kind of assholes. The main character has a gluttony skill that is seemingly just worthless because it just makes him like hungry all the time. So like his stomach is always growling, like no matter how much he eats. And he kind of just gets used by the Holy Knights as a doorman. He just kind of literally, he stands by this gate and he holds a flag and he gets paid like a little bit of money, enough to survive basically every day. Eventually he sees a thief or an assassin or something, and the guy comes to attack him and he ends up stabbing him because like the flagpole has like a pointed spear tip. He ends up stabbing the guy and killing him. And this is when he discovers that his gluttony skill actually has the ability to give him the stats and skills of things that he kills. And it ends up actually like sating him at that point, like finally stops his stomach from grumbling. Our dating story, the experienced you and the inexperienced me. This series is about a guy who, he's got a couple friends, but he's like, you know, one of like the nerdier kids. He watches like this game streamer all the time, and he's also like really big into like sports cars and stuff. And he's kind of like super nervous about women because when he was in like middle school, he had a girl that he was interested in, and he thought that like they were like really close. And when he asked her out, she basically was just like, I just want to be friends. So he kind of avoids like asking people out after that because it's, you know, it's an intimidating thing at that point. Like rejection sucks, right? But he ends up having like a crush on the most popular girl in class, and his buddies are like, okay, whoever gets the highest score on this test has to get punished, right? And he easily gets higher than his friends, and they're like, well, here's your punishment. You have to ask her out. So he goes and he asks her out, and she's like, you know what? Fine. Because it turns out she dates almost everybody, like anybody who asks her out, but like her relationships never last long. And it's all about like the relationship between this guy who's never dated anybody and this girl who's dated all kinds of people and has sexual experience and all that, and feels like all she really wants is to be in love with somebody and to eventually have like a family. So then like the whole thing is like their relationship building, and as they go to actually start caring for each other and eventually actually falling in love with each other. the ups and downs of that. There's a lot of misunderstanding with it. And it's a really cute, like sometimes sad story. A Returner's magic should be special. This series is not really an isekai series, but is a fantasy series about a guy who there's all these like different kinds of magic going on, and the series starts with the main character and his party are about to take down this super powerful like dragon monster, because there's these things called shadow realms that are like slowly taking over the continent, and they're taking out this one who's like kind of like meant to be like the main bad guy, and they beat him, but then he explodes and it kills all of them. And the main character wakes up basically, I forget exactly how many years prior, right before he came back, right before he started school, right before he started high school, to like train to become like this mage. He's still got all of his memories, and he remembers like when some of his closest friends died even before that, and he's like, things are going to be different. I know what I'm capable of now. I know what these other people are capable of. I can make people stronger. I can prepare us for this. And it's all about him using his knowledge of what happens in the future to prepare himself and his friends and make them more powerful going forward, so that history doesn't repeat itself and everybody doesn't die. All these people that he cares about. I'm giving the disgraced noble lady I rescued a crash course in naughtiness. This is a fantasy series about a girl who's kind of she's a noble. I believe she was born from like a mistress, and she was basically kind of treated almost like a Cinderella type thing, where even though she was a noble woman living in a noble house, she's made to just kind of like clean the house all the time. But she is also set to marry another nobleman. But then like shortly before that marriage is supposed to take place, this big thing comes out, this scandal comes out where they make up a bunch of stuff about her and basically persecute her and are going to throw her in jail. She manages to escape and runs off, eventually being like kind of surrounded by like magical beasts, which causes her to like lose her pursuers. And she's picked up by a guy who's known as like the Demon Lord, even though he's just a guy. He's just a really powerful sorcerer. He takes her in and takes care of her, and he like finds out like what happened to her. And it's like, okay, there's probably like some really shady stuff going on here. He's like, I'm gonna let her live here. She can, clean the house if she wants. And he takes it upon himself to teach her naughty things. But his idea of naughty things is like eating sweets for breakfast and doing all this, like basically just doing what you want, like having fun is his idea of naughtiness. And the whole series basically ends up going about him and her, and him teaching her these things like, it's okay to like have fun for yourself, like to love yourself more than you have been, just because your family members and the people you lived with treated you like dog shit. And eventually they, it's definitely implied that both of them kind of start falling for each other, though they aren't like super open about it by the end of like the show, or at least this first season, assuming there's more later down the line. Next up is Shy. This is a modern superhero show. There's heroes for most countries, it seems like, although it only has shown like 6 in the first season. The main character is Shy. That's her hero name. And all the heroes have like these bangles that they got from like kind of like an alien, it looks like. And they all have different powers. So like the powers come from like their heart, the strength of their heart. And there's all this different stuff that goes on where they find out that there's a guy who's going in and like basically tapping into the darkness in people's hearts to like make monsters. And it's all about her basically growing as a hero, becoming like opening up to people a little bit more, realizing the strength inside of her, and trying to deal with these bad guys. My daughter left the nest and returned an S-rank adventurer. So this is about a fantasy series about a guy who lives in a village. He was an adventurer who lost his leg early on in his adventuring career, and then he retired, goes to this village, he kind of just protects it. He finds a little girl in the woods and raises her as his own, and then he teaches her how to sword fight. She goes off to become an adventurer and becomes like one of the strongest adventurers in this town. She's an S rank, the highest rank there can be. She's super well known, super well loved by the people that she protects. And basically all she wants to do is go visit home to see her dad, who she's obsessed with. And every time she tries to go home, something comes up. It's a really cool show. Hopefully there's more of it. Look forward to seeing more continue with that story. A playthrough of a certain dude's VR MMO life. This series is about a salaryman who gets a new video game that comes out, and it's basically all about, you have multiple different ways of like leveling in this fantasy video game. He chooses a bunch of skills that most people don't think are really strong, and is just like, I'm just going to play this game my way. I just have a little bit of time to play after work. I'm not going to get involved in any guilds. I'm just going to do my own thing. Protocol Rain. This series is about a kid who used to play video games, and then because of a certain incident, his sister gets injured and can't walk anymore. So he stopped playing games so that he could help, he could work more and provide for his family, because his dad died in that same accident that his sister got injured in. Eventually, he gets kind of asked to get back into video games because the place where he works is a game cafe, and the team they sponsor basically all quits because the owner is in debt. So he agrees to go ahead and start playing again so they can try to win some prize money and kind of get the shop back afloat and get the owner back out of his debt. Finally, we have the last show from fall 2023 that I watched, The Family Circumstances of the Irregular Witch. This is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. Every episode, I was constantly laughing at every single bit they made. The whole point of this show is there's this witch who looks like a really little girl, like everyone assumes that she's young, and she finds a regular human child, who has a lot of magic potential, and she takes her in and raises her own. So fast forward 16 years, there's her daughter, Viola, who everyone assumes is the actual mother and the witch, and they assume the mother is like her apprentice because, again, she looks like a little girl, even though she's 200-something years old. And it's all about these zany, everyday lifestyle things that happen with them, with Viola wanting to, like, summon familiars. She ends up summoning a phoenix, and there's an elf who's like in love with the mother, but Viola doesn't want anybody getting too close to her mother because she's obsessed with her. She's in love with her. Like, she's like, this is my mom. Like, I'm not handing her over to you. And it's just a lot of like crazy, almost like misadventures at times. It's very slice of life comedy. It's hysterical. And as a bonus, Viola is voiced by Nana Mizuki, who also, she does the theme song for the show Sugar Donuts. And I love Nana Mizuki. I have ever since Rosario Vampire, way back whenever I was in high school, and I started watching a bunch of subbed anime. So it's great. Love the show. Can't recommend it enough. It's fantastic. All right. Now that I've gone through all the shows that I watched, all 47 of them, let's get to the ranking. At number 47, we have Protocol Rain. At number 46, we have Ayaka. At number 45, we have The Fruit of Evolution Season 2. At number 44, Ningen Fushin. Number 43 is The Kingdoms of Ruin. Number 42 is Berserk of Gluttony. Number 41, The Iceblade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World. Number 40, My Unique Skill Makes Me OP Even at Level 1. Number 39, A Playthrough of a Certain Dude's VR MMO Life. Number 38, Hori Me a Piece. Number 37, I'm Giving the Disgraced Noble Lady I Rescued a Crash Course in Naughtiness. Number 36, Atelier Ryza and the Everdarkness in the Secret Hideout. Number 35, The Misfit at Demon King Academy Season 2. Number 34, My Love Story with Yamada at level 999. Number 33, Bow Fury Season 2. Number 32, Am I Actually the Strongest? Number 31, I have Classroom for Heroes. Number 30, Our Dating Story, The Experienced You and the Inexperienced Me, also known as Kimi Zero. I forgot to say that earlier. Number 29, Liar Liar. Number 28, The Cafe Terrace and Its Goddesses. Number 27 is A Galaxy Next Door. Number 26, A Returner's Magic Should Be Special. Number 25, Goblin Slayer Season 2. Number 24, Konosuba, An Explosion on This Wonderful World. Number 23, Masamune Kun's Revenge R. Number 22, The Rising of the Shield Hero Season 3. Number 21, My Daughter Left the Nest and Returned an S-Strength Adventurer. Number 20, Reborn as a Vending Machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon. Number 19, Rent a Girlfriend Season 3. Number 18, The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. Number 17 is The Legendary Hero is Dead. Number 16 is My One Hit Kill Sister. Number 15 is Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. Number 14, I have Reign of the Seven Spellblades. Number 13 is Shy. Number 12, I have Mashley, which Season 2 of Mashley so far, really good. Number 11, I have Spy Family Season 2. And for the top 10, and again, a lot of these kind of can fluctuate, especially I would say in the top 20. It's real tough for a lot of these to like really pick where they were at, because again, I pretty much enjoyed all these shows. Number 10, I got a cheat skill in Another World and became unrivaled in the real world too. Number 9, the Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc. Number 8, Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury Season 2. This show would have been higher if it was Season 1. I liked the first half more than the second half, so it probably would have been like top 5, maybe even top 3 if this would have been 2022's list. The Family Circumstances of the Irregular Witch is number 7. Number 6, I have Chillin' in My 30s after being fired from the Demon King's army. And the top 5. At number 5, we have Buddy Daddies. Fantastic show. Great. I love it. Number 4, we have Tomo-chan as a Girl. Best rom-com of the year. Number 3, this one might be the one a lot of people argue with me on. Number 3, I have Frieren at Beyond Journey's End. At number 2, I have Shangri-La Frontier. And at number 1, I have Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Season 2. And that's my list of 2023 anime from bottom to top. Again, some of these I understand people are going to not agree with. Like most people are probably going to say Frieren was the best anime of the year, obviously, because, you know, it's top of my anime list and all that. It still has unseated Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood last I checked. But again, it's my personal opinion on it, and if nothing else, it shows that recency bias isn't really a thing for me, because I have Mushoku Tensei up above it, and Shangri-La Frontier, and Tomo-chan is a Girl, and Buddy Daddies I have in my top 5, when those are from, you know, literally a year ago at this point. But again, that's my opinion on it. I did enjoy all these shows, some just a lot more than others. Like the ones at the bottom of the list, either it's kind of a balancing thing, right? Either they had maybe a little bit less interesting of a story to me, to where I wasn't as excited to watch them week to week, or in a lot of cases it was lower ranked because even though I did like the story or the concept of it, it wasn't executed as well, or it didn't have as good of animation as something like a Frieren, Shangri-La Frontier, Mushoku Tensei, which is one of the most beautiful anime I've ever seen, or even Witch from Mercury, which has the absolute best use of 3D CG I've seen in an anime to date. Granted, they have that Bandai Namco budget. Still, I guess that just shows that even if you're going to use 3D to kind of like cut down on costs and ease of work, maybe you should still use a little bit of a budget to make your 3D look a little bit nicer. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to like, subscribe, and if you want to, leave a comment. I'll be coming out with more videos going forward, not just talking about anime and manga, but also some video game related content, and maybe some stuff about the VTubers that I watch. You can also find me streaming regularly at Twitch. My Twitch name is Ditkaz, twitch.tv/Ditkaz. That's Ditkaz. Thanks for watching, and have a great day, everybody.